right, good morning, everybody. I know 9 o'clock is running a little bit late because it's a communion Sunday, so there will be some people who are dribbling and drabbling in from up there. But I'd like to welcome everybody to our talk about our Ireland pilgrimage. I organized that, and it happened from October 5th to the 15th, and we had a wonderful group of 22 people that went all around Ireland to various spiritual sites and thin places. So you're going to see about a 90-second video here first, and then folks who went on the trip are going to talk about some of the individual pictures you will see up there. But before we see the video, let's bow our heads in a word of prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for this first Sunday of Advent. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together as your people and think about this wonderful pilgrimage that we took to Ireland. Lord, we thank you for these amazing experiences to get closer to you, to get to know you better. And so we ask that you be with us now as we review our time in Ireland. Lord, we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. that together, and now we're going to start with Nancy Merrill.
A few of us are going to talk about, is this still on? Yeah. It just has to be right here, doesn't it? Some of us are going to share either our favorite moment or something that moved us the most or something we learned. And we're going to follow our trip on the map, and the yellow dot, see the yellow circle above Glendalough, is what I'm going to talk about. You see that we landed in Dublin. We went south to this first monastic site of Glendalough, and then the black line takes you on our path all the way up to the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, which you pass into without any checkpoint or checking of passport or anything. You just drive through. Glendalough is an old monastic site from the 7th and 8th centuries, and Susie Cockrell is going to tell us more about this particular site. This is my favorite moment of the trip, where we were walking on a trail up to see something in Glendalough, and we wanted to stop and have communion somewhere along the way. And I think we were looking for a picnic table or a park bench or something, but Emily spotted this tree stump, and so we circled around the tree stump, kind of a semicircle, and she just happened to produce some slices of white bread and a little individual screw cap bottle of wine. And was that a plastic glass or?
No, I think that was real glass.
Real glass, wine glass. And each in turn, she said some words of the communion service, and in turn, each of us walked up, took a piece of bread, dipped it in the wine, and went back to our place. And as we were doing that, we heard these voices behind us that said, "Is that the body and blood? Is that the body and blood?" And one of us said, "Yes." And someone else said, "Would you like to join us? Could we?" And so they joined us for communion, and then went on their way. There were local guides at various sites. Is this going to? Here we go. This is one of the guides. So at various sites where we were, there was someone local who could tell us the story of the place. And these are the high crosses that you see throughout Ireland, and particularly in these old ancient graveyards and sites. So I think it's time to pass it to the next speaker, who is Susie.
One thing, I seem to have a sinus issue and my one ear is blocked up. So if you don't hear me or if I'm talking too loudly, let me know. After the flight to Dublin and the bus down to Glendalough, Glendalough, by the way, is the name of, stands for Valley of Two Lakes, which is just the most beautiful, gorgeous place you've ever seen. We couldn't check into the hotel, so we had lunch. We came out of the hotel, and almost immediately there was a beautiful stone arch which took us into the monastic city, which was founded by Kevin. I'll get to him in a second. But there is a beautiful cathedral, that there where we're walking around is part of the cathedral. This is 10th, 11th century building. And there is a round tower. You can't quite see it. I'm standing there with Tina holding it. It's the most beautiful stone tower that's 100 feet tall. There it is. Yes, that's great. Thank you. It is the most beautiful thing. And it supposedly was to help them find refuge from attacks, Viking attacks, whatever, or to store valuables. Supposedly at some point it had 1 or 2 levels. How they ever got everyone up there, I don't know, if they needed to. But there are all these buildings, St. Kevin's Church, the remains which we could see, but they're all centered on the cathedral, the worship of Christ, and then around that were the monks who were there to religious prayers, who were there to copy manuscripts. They had a scriptoria. And then around that were people that wanted to be educated. I don't know really where they came from, but they found this, and probably as a beacon. That tower was a beacon saying this is where you can come for education. And that, I guess, is Kevin, that stone effigy. At any rate, it was a beautiful experience, and then we walked along this path where Emily did communion, and we went up to the second lake, And up on the left from the lake, on the mountain there, it's a beautiful sight, was Kevin's cell. Kevin was born, and they say he was born in 498, and they also casually say he died around 618. And no one ever comments on the fact that he must have been incredibly old. But they don't talk about it. No one mentions it in anything that I've read about him. Anyhow, he was an ascetic. He loved being in nature, God's creation. He had part of the Celtic spirituality mixed in with his religion. He was ordained. Patrick had already come to Ireland by then, and he went back there to contemplate nature, be close to God. And apparently some people traveled around and found him there and said, you ought to start something where more people could understand what you're teaching us. And he did decide to do that, but before he did, there are stories, I guess you'd call this Irish lore, where he one day put out his hand and a blackbird came and sat on the hand and then had a nest and then had growth in the nest, babies in the nest. And he held his hand the whole time. This is quite a story. There was another story where he was in this beautiful area right over the lake that apparently the Bible that he had, if he really did have a Bible, fell into the lake and an otter picked it up and brought it back to him unharmed. So there's a lot of Irish lore. I had no idea how much Irish lore there was, but he did go to found, he was encouraged to, and he founded the monastery there. Apparently the monastery did last till about 12th century, 11th, 12th, 13th. The Viking raids and the Normans coming to Ireland is when it finally was dissolved. So I had a wonderful time there.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about St. Bridget. I'm going to talk about Solus Brigidata and also the well of St. Bridget. St. Bridget was born around 451 her father was a Celtic chieftain and her mother was a Christian slave. And these slaves, you'll hear about St. Patrick. He was a slave in Ireland. He was captured in Britain and brought over to Ireland. She's known for her hospitality, her kindness. She was way ahead of her time. She was a woman, and at that time, women really weren't that high on this scale on the Christian side. On the Celtic side, they were recognized and given many equal rights. She established a monastery that was one that had a side for women and a side for men. So there's many, as Susie said, there's many stories, and one of the stories that goes with St. Bridget is that somebody gave her a basket of apples, and she was always taking care of. She was an advocate for the poor, and she gave them to some poor people. And the person who gave these apples to her became very angry with her. And she said, "What tree did you pick these apples from?" And the person pointed out the trees, and she said, "There'll never be another apple on it again." And there wasn't. And for the beer drinkers in the group, one of her miracles was turning water into beer. And so, only in Ireland would you have a story like that. If any of you have Netflix, there is a cute little movie called The Irish Wish, and it's about St. Bridget, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great watch. I failed to say she was one of three patron saints. It was St. Columba and of course, St. Patrick and St. Bridget. She was buried when she was born 451. She did live to be 75 years old, and she was buried in Kildare, and then at some point in time, her body was moved up to be alongside of St. Patrick and St. Columba. Now the center, the Solus, I'm going to mess this thing up, Brigidata, the flame of Saint Bridget. We spent a morning there, and the hospitality truly reflected what it was all about. It's where Sister Philomena, she was the one. There was when you leave, be sure to see the cross that she wove while she was talking. She was telling us all about Saint Bridget and the center, and she was weaving this Celtic cross at the same time. There's the cross right there. So the center also maintains a flame. And this flame originally, when it was a tradition, not a tradition, it was a requirement that the sisters maintained this flame, fire. And at times it was extinguished, but this, in 1992, when the center was built, this fire was lit, and they have since maintained it. While we were, one of the things that surprised me, one of the sisters had passed away, and Sister, as she said, called me Sister Phil. Sister Phil was as kind and gentle, and you never know that there was anything wrong other than they had just lost one of their sisters, and she was sad, but we had a wonderful lunch. We saw one of our first rainbows, of many, many rainbows. Everybody ran to the window and said, "Oh, there's a rainbow." And well, guess what? We saw many, many after that. We did go to St. Bridget's Well, and wells hold a very, very important place in Ireland. And from the very beginning, the Celts believed that this is where the spirits went into the earth, also spirits came out. And I can say it was my I experienced what was known as a thin, Thin, thin place that was close to heaven and earth. While Sister Phil was blessing us and saying a prayer for us and also for the sister who passed, there was a calmness that I felt in this place, and it grew. And if any of you have ever been to the beaches of Normandy or Pearl Harbor, I recognize that same feeling. It's a deep feeling of peace and quietness, and I don't know, sorrow's the wrong word, but I felt a very special place. So that was my experience with the thin side. And let's see, things left in the trees. If you looked around these trees, around this thing, what you see there are pieces either clothing of people who were ill, and people brought a strip of their clothing there and hung it on the trees. And again, tradition was that she would, if she so wished, St. Bridget would heal the person. There were glasses, there were car keys, there were shoes, tennis shoes, a variety of things in these trees around there. But that was, again, part of this deep, rich spirituality and beliefs and stories that the Irish feel. And can't say enough about that trip. I wondered when I signed up for this with Charlene, I thought, a pilgrimage, what's that all about? I would highly recommend it to anybody. Please, if you ever have the opportunity to do it, it is very, very worth the time. And there was no effort. It was a wonderful time. So.
Linda Benson.
Okay, I don't have mine memorized, so. Newgrange, and I never did figure out how to pronounce that, the second word, Note, I think. No. Anyway. So, there's a lot to say about Newgrange. Probably the most important thing is its age. It was constructed about 3200 BC, so it's 5,000 years old. This means it's 600 years older than the Giza pyramids. It is 1,000 years older than Stonehenge. So if you just let that sink in. Stonehenge was a rough, wooden, circular structure when Newgrange was being built. So, the Newgrange consists of a large kidney-shaped mound covering an area of over an acre. And at the base are those curbstones, which are richly decorated with megalithic art. So, what was the purpose of this massive undertaking? Well, people say that it's an ancient cathedral, a place of astrological, spiritual, religious, and ceremonial importance. And we know that there were cremated remains inside the tomb of extremely important people. And this might correspond with the way prominent people are buried in our cathedrals today. But probably the most important feature of Newgrange is the way that it captures the sun on the winter solstice. Around December, and they have actually a lottery that in Ireland that you can get to go in on this day to see this light on December 21st. If you see that window above the curbstone at sunrise on or about December 21st, the first rays of the sun enter the chamber through a window, and that's called the roof box. And it gradually fills the chamber with light for 17 minutes. And while we were inside, they turned out the lights and it turned out all the lights and then projected what it would look like. So the reason I chose Newgrange is that this experience resonated with me. Why would they go all this trouble to honor the return of the sun? And I was thinking about our service of the longest night, memorial service that we're going to celebrate in a few weeks. And I'd always been told that Christmas was in December because of the Roman holiday Saturnalia. And the Christians just kind of went along. Well, that's what I've been told, but now, having been to Ireland, I think that human beings in Europe have been celebrating the winter solstice for at least 5,000 years. So you might say it's in our DNA. And one of the things I learned from Ireland is that Celtic culture is very much alive in our world today. Who's next?
Good morning. Tell you a little bit about St. Patrick. If you're like me, you might have some Irish roots. I thought St. Patrick was Irish. Well, he was not Irish. He was born, very little is known about him actually, but he was born on the island of Britain in about the year 385 AD. When he was a teenager, he was kidnapped by Celtic or marauding people and taken to Ireland as a slave. He worked as a shepherd for about 6 years. He got to know the culture and was able to escape. Scholars think he had to have had help in doing this, but he escaped and talked his way onto a ship to get back home. Very little is known about that, but there are some writings of St. Patrick. In the first morning of our St. Patrick Day, we went to a lovely museum in the town of Downpatrick. It's dedicated to St. Patrick. And the director, Tim Campbell, took us through the museum. there we learned about his life and what little is known about it. He did become a priest. Many say he traveled to France, to Gaul, and studied to become a priest there. But in a dream or a vision, was directed to go back to Ireland, the country of his captivity, and take Christianity to Ireland. And since he knew the culture, he had been there, he was able to get property with chieftains and the lords. He was able to get property, and his first church was Saul Church. Now, Saul in Gaelic means barn, and chances are that's where his first church was in the year 432. We were told how to remember that, 432, by Dr. Campbell. He established other churches, but Saul Church was his first. And we visited there after we left the Downpatrick and the St. Patrick's Center, which also had a very nice shop, I will say, of Irish goods. We went to Saul Church, which is a couple miles out of town, and we worshiped there and had communion there. We had someone join us too, up there, who was not with our group. Emily spoke with her, and I'm not sure of her background story, but she joined us for communion. And it was a very moving service. St. Patrick died here. He's not buried here. He's buried a few miles away with, as Joe mentioned, St. Bridget and St. Columba. So not only was St. Patrick not Irish, he was never canonized officially as a saint. He is recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church, the Church of Ireland, even the Orthodox Church. But he lived before the formal canonization of saints. So I never knew that either. And it's unsure when exactly he died. He lived to be very old for the time. It's not sure exactly when he died, but now he is one of the patron saints of Ireland. And having Irish roots, growing up Presbyterian, I never gave much thought to St. Patrick, and the Celtic roots of my faith, and that's what this trip brought home to me. How thankful we should be that there was a St. Patrick.
Thanks, Charlene. Ed, Miller?
Well, I'm talking to you about the Giant's Causeway, which is at the tip of Northern Ireland, and is just a stone throw from Scotland across the sea. And I think it's significant to use the term stone's throw because you can see this is just basically stone. What it is actually columns of basalt, which is a volcanic rock that the scientific community believes that what happened was there was multiple lava flows that came, and when the lava cooled, there was pressure fractures that went down into the earth, and they came up as pillars, hexagonal pillars. And they're really neat because they just look like these little stepping stones, throughout, these areas. And what they call them is you can see on the picture to the far right, they call it a stairway to the sea. Now, I decided to descend the stairwell, and that's what you can see on the picture. And I don't think it really wasn't a spiritual moment. It was an emotional evoking moment because it invoked the ire of my wife when I was down by the sea, because it was a very, very windy day, and it was very difficult to stand on the rocks. But in any event, it's interesting because there's a similar formation across the sea in Scotland. And the scientists believe that what it was is the lava flow went across the ocean. But I think the Irish have a better explanation of what this really was. Now, in Irish lore, they recognize giants. And there was a giant by the name of Finn McCool. And Finn was supposed to be a very, very intelligent person. And he learned of this other giant in Scotland by the name of Benendaur. And he learned that Benendaur was trying to attack the island of Ireland. So he was going to go over and teach Benendaur a lesson. So what he did was he threw rocks into the ocean and created this causeway so he could walk across to Scotland to confront the other giant. Well, what he did was when he got over the giant, the other giant was sleeping, bending down her. And he said, and he went there and he goes, oh my goodness, this giant is larger than I ever expected. So then he turned around and came running back to Ireland. And when he got there, it ended up that Benendower woke up from his sleep and realized someone was there to confront him. So he decided to come across to Ireland to teach Finn McCool a lesson. And Benendower was this enormous giant. And then so it ended up that Finn McCool's wife, also very intelligent, she came up with the plan of this. She dressed Finn McCool as a baby and held Finn on her lap. And Finn pretended to sleep. So then when Benendower came, she went, shh, don't wake my baby, don't wake my baby. And Benendower stopped in his tracks and he goes, oh my goodness, if that baby is that big, I can't believe what his father's gonna look like. And then Benendower hightailed it back to Scotland and he broke the causeway up when he was running. So that's why they explain why there is just one on one side and one on the Irish side. So, but anyway, it was a wonderful trip, and again, encourage everyone to go.
Good to see you all. I expected to see some things in Ireland, and some things just caught me by surprise, totally by surprise. And I was looking for, as the trip was billed, for thin places. I had this concept of what a thin place was that Joe has already alluded to a bit about. And though I don't think I saw a classic thin place, my experience with those of you who were with me on the pilgrimage was akin to it, whether it was at a communion that Emily had, I guess we had two, or whether it was a singing of a song or two. It was just a beautiful moment that I really treasure. But I expected to see old churches and stone churches. I expected to see crosses. Indeed, the high crosses, which we may have a picture of. I'm going to talk about the Book of Kells and high crosses. So this is the Book of Kells, so maybe I'll go there first. On the left is the old library in Dublin, at Trinity College in Dublin, which we were there. Those high columns of books were all empty because they were recataloguing all those books. What's the number? How many books?
200,000 volumes.
200,000 volumes of books, and they're redoing them. Book of Kells, which you see pictured on the right, is this fantastic treasure of Ireland that I didn't know anything about when we got there. And we went to a place where there was a Book of Kells. It's 800 AD. It's not as old as the Noth and the Newgrange, thousands and thousands, but 800 AD, considered to be one of the treasures. There on the left is Mary and infant Jesus, and on the right is a kind of cross. It is the most illuminated Bible that exists, New Testament only, and some 10 features. There's a picture of the original, that's calf skin, or called vellum. But those illustrations by monks and artists of 800 AD were just spectacular to see. And I have a favorite that I carry around. This is the first Cairo. It's introduction to the book, and it's the first time in the Bible that Christ is mentioned as the Christ, and why it's called Cairo. So I really enjoyed getting to know the Book of Kells. The other thing that I didn't expect, and there's some pictures. This is one of a high cross. These things can be they can be 15 feet tall. But what I really like about them is they have the same function as stained glass windows. And that is, those are two good pictures there. That is, they have biblical tales that are carved in stone. And this was how the church decided to spread the word through to the illiterate masses, and they used stone carvings to do so. So seeing these high crosses throughout Ireland was just a total surprise to me. Very much fun. So thank you.
Does anyone else back there? Come forward, Victoria.
Are we done with that?
I think you will wrap us up.
Hi. Thank you. I'm Victoria Graham. And, what time is it? 10:45. I could talk all day.
It was so wonderful.
So I'm new to a lot of you. I found my way here, I think, spiritually. I could share that sometime. But the trip was so wonderful. And I'm a Roman Catholic, so I laughed and said, the blood and the body and blood of Christ. But the Christianity that we experienced, and that historical significance is something I've always sort of followed through my life. And I have a fascination. I'm a nurse, and I love people. And to think the human endeavor that it took to bring Christianity from the Middle East to the shores of Ireland, it's truly inspirational. It's all pre-Reformation. It's all Christ's gospel. It's all the human ability to tap in to the matter that we've been blessed with, the earth. The thin spaces where you almost feel like you're with God. I think I heard a beautiful sermon today. Reverend Michael Creamer. Whew, beautiful. And he spoke to this. When we went to Ireland, one of the first things we were told by the tour guide was it had to do with the history of Ireland and the lore and the tales. And he said quickly, the Irish history brings you close to shape-shifting and time bending. And I thought to myself, this was the first day. I'm where I need to be right now. If you experience life and remember the magical moments, you cannot help but see the work of God and how we have the ability to tap into that divine energy flow. Sometimes it's still like, Eric? Who said? Eric. It's a still space. It's a peaceful space you spoke of. And then when we were on the mounds, it's a dynamic energy force. And when we were, Anne's leaving, when we talked about the winds at the end of our trip, it blew her over. And so, and the Giant's Causeway, and we got to experience beautiful weather. If you know anything about Ireland and England, you think you're going to see rain all the time. But God graced us with what we humans need. The rainbow we were on a long bus tour, a little hungry, maybe a little stiff, a little uncertain. And we look out the window, and the most beautiful rainbows that we ever saw. You could almost see the pot of gold on both sides. It was fascinating. So I just want to share, if you have a trip to go to Ireland, and I didn't see that lithograph of St. Kevin. I felt like I was looking at family. So there's something about that, too, if you have any Irish in your background, that familiarity with home and the endeavors of humans to explain and be sustained by their environment and their reality, by building with wood. And then you get into the shepherd. Someone said, I love the shepherd. I heard from St. Bridget's that the sheep are the only animals that do not need human labor to survive. I learned that Rome tried to break into Ireland but couldn't. It was big islands Ireland just filled with woods and boars and bristles. So they left. But the Irish, they mastered their island. It's just phenomenal. I don't see, are we going to see? I hope there's more. When we went to
Linda's going to close us with a moment of song.
This was just suggested a few minutes ago. So those of us who are singers, and those of us who maybe play singers on TV, but the song Be Thou My Vision, we sang everywhere we went. And those of us who were in the choir were struck by the lyrics that we perhaps had not understood before. So I'm just going to sing one stanza, and the word, thou my high tower. And I thought, that's Glendalough. And how many times have I sung this song? So I will try here. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my soul shelter, and thou my high tower. Raise thy